Welcome to Crafting for Profit Live, episode 12. Today's topic is unleashing the power of digital products. So, in this episode, we're going to talk about how digital products like SVG files, ebooks, even courses can help you grow your business. You can ask questions if you're joining us on the YouTube Live. So, be sure you're in the live chat and then you can just ask any questions that you have. We will keep it on topic and we will pull some of those questions at the end of the episode. If you have questions that are like completely off topic, I want to ask Angie and Corey something, there is a form in the description below the YouTube video or in the podcast notes. So head there, fill out the form, and we do episodes occasionally where we just answer your questions.
All right, and make sure to rate and review our podcast. We say this every time because it really helps our podcast grow and it helps us get a larger audience. So find your favorite podcast network and rate and review. Give a thumbs up to this YouTube Live. However you might want to give us that support, we would really appreciate it. So today's guest is Abbi Kirsten from Abbi Kirsten Collections, and we are so excited she's here. We've worked with her on a bunch of different things, and she's here to talk about the power of digital products. So Abbi, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today. Forewarning everyone who's watching this, I am a little bit sick, so you're probably going to hear me be a little raspy throughout this. But anyways, thank you guys so much for having me today. I'm Abbi from Abbi Kirsten Collections. You've probably seen me around the web at some point in time. I love to teach people how to create and craft, especially with their cutting machines. And my mission is simply to just make the world a more joyful place through the power of creativity.
So thank you so much, Abbi, for being here. And you make the world a better place just with your paper flowers. So if you have not seen her paper flowers, be sure to check those out. All right, so we're going to start with first your journey. So tell us about your journey into digital products. What inspired you to start creating and selling them?
Well, honestly, this is going to sound really cliche, but digital products found me. I had absolutely no intention or mission of heading down a digital product path. But when I started, I was actually making, as you mentioned, my paper flowers, I was making handmade paper flowers to sell on Etsy, and I was shipping bouquets to brides and arrangements and things. So it was actual physical product business going out. And I started getting a lot of requests from brides, coincidentally enough, that were like, I want to actually make this for myself rather than purchase the fully made design. And I was like, okay, how the heck do I do that? I have no idea. Is that even possible? I had no idea. So I just went to the internet. I was like, how can I make a digital file? How can I digitize what I created in a template form that I drew? And put it in a way that I can share it via the internet. And so I just did a lot of self-research and that kind of stuff and figured out how to use certain programs to make this happen. And then once that question got answered for me, I ended up launching my Etsy shop that was just for digital templates. And I was selling all of the flower templates as digital files and then creating tutorials to go along with them so I could teach these people who wanted to make that for themselves. And that's kind of where it all just spilled out from there. It was really just people asking me for it. I was like, this is awesome. And then I was like, I only have to make this once and then I don't have to ship anything. And it was so cool because I just love the passive income side of it.
Yeah, that was for me is the shipping portion, running an Etsy shop and the shipping. I hated the shipping portion and the actual, all of that business aspect of the handmade market. So for me, the switch to digital was the best because I could make something, like you said, once, sell it over and over again, and no shipping. It's delivered digitally, automatically even.
Right away.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So you mentioned a little bit about your paper flower templates, but what other types of digital products do you offer through Abbi Kirsten Collections? And then what's the most popular for you?
Yeah, so the flower templates are where I got my start. But from there, what evolved was I actually got more people who said, hey, you should write a book. They're like, you should write a book. I'm like, I don't know how to write a book. I don't know how to contact a publisher. They're like, well, just do a self-published ebook. I'm like, all right, let's try that. So again, I went back to researching to figure it out. And I was like, all right, I can put an ebook together. That's basically photographs and these digital templates that I can make, and I can write tutorials in a book. And that's what I did. I wrote my first book it was 2015, The Art of Giant Paper Flowers. That was my first ebook. And then I wrote a second one, The Joy of Paper Flowers, 2 years later. And then I've also written a few other ebooks for Cricut crafting, and then eventually it evolved into courses because I realized that I liked the ebook side of it. I liked that I could put more value into an ebook than just like a single download for my people. And then I also got people who wanted to learn on a deeper level, and I was like, all right, how about courses? And so then I started researching, how do we do this course thing? And it sort of was just one step at a time. And it evolved to a point where now I had these individual downloads. I had these ebooks. I even did some spin-off bundles from like individual downloads that I would put into bundles. And then I would do more immersive experiences with my courses and stuff. And so those are all the different variations of digital products that I currently have at Abbi Kirsten Collections.
I feel like for me too, it was like, I'm going to sell this one thing, and then it just sort of starts to pinball.
Yep.
Is that the right word? I don't know. I'm not feeling particularly well either today. But it starts to like, it's a domino effect. There we go. I got the right game.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, let's take it another level. And it is kind of like letting your customer also sort of lead where you're going, which we've talked about before, because a lot of times we want to kind of take the reins, which is understandable. But if we listen to our customers, they will give us feedback on what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And something like ebooks, like you talked about, like if I wanted to write a book and self-publishing seems daunting, like it seems like this whole thing, and I would have to find a publisher or self-publishing a printed book. But an ebook, you could make one and sell it very, very easily. So also the easy aspect of some of these digital products is like drew me in as well.
Yes, absolutely. I do think it's amazing how you can produce them rather easily. You don't have to have this super elite set of skills. I think some people can get intimidated about doing a digital product because they think I have to have this whole graphic design experience and I have to know how to do XYZ first. Like, no, you can legit just dive into it and be messy kind of with it and learn as you go. Because I will tell you, like, I look at my first digital product, my first ebook, which I've actually never remodeled, and I should totally remodel it because it's so bad now. But like just that, like I've come so far from the experience of learning along the way. I always like to say you kind of have to suck in the beginning to be great later on. Like it's just part of the process. You can't arrive at great until you've gone through the journey. So yeah, absolutely. You can embrace it wherever you are, and it doesn't have to be complicated.
So that leads us into like, what is your process for making creative files, like tools, software? What are your favorite things to use?
Yeah, so when I started my research, I had to figure out how to do things digitally because I needed to share it via the internet. So of course, everything had to be digital, and I didn't really know what questions to ask. But you know how it is when you don't know what question to ask, you go to Google, you ask a question, and then Google figures out what you're trying to say, and then you just sort of like evolve from there. So I was like, okay, I need to have some sort of like vector-based software so that I can create these organic image files that I can share in different ways for people. And so I found Inkscape, which is a free open source software, and that's what I started with, and I've been using all this time. But Adobe Illustrator is also another one that's very well known and is a very good program as well. So those are the tools that I use to create my digital products. But you can also create, digital products with other things. For example, maybe you don't need a more digital file type like me. Maybe you're just trying to share your knowledge in an ebook format of something else. You could use something like Canva, which is a great software. I'm sure you ladies have probably already talked about it on your podcast before, to write ebooks. And I use that for the actual ebook creation side of things when it comes to like putting in images and then writing text and getting the format all pretty and all of that good stuff. So those are my primary go-to sources for that. And then, of course, there's platforms. There's so many spin-off answers to that, platforms to host your courses if you go down the course route, and, camera equipment if you happen to be filming and you want to go the more video form route. There's a lot of rabbit holes there. But for me, my digital files, I do primarily in Inkscape. I still do Inkscape mostly because I just started there and I know it so well. And it worked. I was like, okay, well, I know it. Let's just don't reinvent the wheel. I'm good. So I still kind of live in Inkscape to this day.
Yeah, I'm definitely an Illustrator girl, and I've tried to go to other programs, and my brain is like, no, you're an Illustrator person.
Yes.
I also think one of the great things about Canva in particular is they have so many templates, right? So you're not just starting from a blank page. Whether you want to do an ebook, they have tons of ebook templates. You can also buy ebook templates, like on places like
Mhm.
Creative Market.
Mhm.
So if you're looking for something that Canva doesn't have, you can go looking on, Etsy or Creative Market or Creative Fabrica. They all have templates that you can find. But then if you wanted to do something that was different than that, like they have, editable checklists or, these sorts of things. And those can be simple digital files that you can sell or give away as like an email lead.
Mhm.
So maybe you sell a certain type of thing at a craft fair and people are coming to you like, what do you need to take to a craft fair, for your soap business or whatever? You could create like a specific checklist for the soap business, the things you need to bring to a craft fair for that
Yeah.
particular type of business. You can share it, you can give it away, you can sell it for, very low price. But that's another thing I really love about Canva is that you can just go find a design there. There's a billion of them.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think Canva's great too for like when you get to the side of marketing for your product, having a lot of like mock-ups and things like that that you need to create to actually market the product, like images that would go on sales pages or in emails or on in your blog posts or wherever you might be talking about it. It's so great for like those templates, like you said, to create those mock-ups and marketing graphics there for sure.
I
Absolutely.
often find the templates in Canva also they almost are brainstorming for me. So if you search Canva templates and you search like checklist or cheat sheet or something like that in the templates, it's often like, hey, I could spin that template to be relative to like my business and use it as like a freebie download for an email or something like that. So it's almost like a little brainstorming in the
Mhm.
background there too. When I look at templates for ebooks, cheat sheets, they have so
Mhm.
many templates. There are thousands.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I have like if you could see the history of my Canva account, I have so many things I've started. You're like, "Oh, that's pretty. I'll do something with that later." You stick it in there and then like 2 years pass, you're like, "Oh, I remember I looked at that template a while back."
I spent 10 seconds on that
Yeah.
2 years
It's
ago.
awesome. You could go down a rabbit hole for sure.
That is so funny. I think we're all like that. My Canva backend is like a disaster. Like
Oh,
there's no organization. It's such a
seriously.
mess.
Seriously, it's cute. I try to get organized now, and I'm just like, yeah, that's a cute idea, but I don't know.
That is hilarious. All right. So how did you first start monetizing your digital products? And like what kind of platforms have you found have worked really well for your sales?
Yeah, so the first place I monetized, of course, was Etsy, which is, I mean, everybody knows Etsy, so it kind of has its own source and flow of traffic, which is a great place to start if you're looking for, doing simple ebooks, simple checklists and printables, things like that. You could definitely get started there very easily. But I do think it's important that you're always standing out on your own, kind of branding yourself, setting yourself apart. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, that kind of thing. So for me, once I kind of got used to the Etsy world, I decided, okay, let's start a website, which ended up just being like a blog. And through the blog, I ended up sharing my ebooks. And so I would share some free tutorials, and then I would talk about like my paid ebook, or I would have a little shop tab on my site, and there would be downloads on there. Same thing for like my courses. I would create free workshops around them. I would do like a live free workshop, and then I would maybe turn it into like a replay evergreen that people could watch on demand, and then they would get invited into a program. So there is like endless ways that you can monetize your product as far as getting people aware of them. I think the first thing is to just create a brand, like create a brand around what you want to be known for, and then just produce content regularly. So if you're someone who wants to write, likes writing blog posts or tutorials or something like that, create a site like that, and then talk about your paid products in those posts, things that are naturally lead into that. And you're going to see that traffic kind of feed into those sales in that way. There's so many different ways you could do that, but that's just the one way I kind of did it in the beginning.
I feel like there's 1,000 platforms and I've tried most of them.
Yes.
And there's things, and I have yet to find a perfect platform.
Yeah.
But there are, depending on what you want to sell, you can set up that Etsy shop in the beginning. It's a great
Yeah.
place to start. At
Yeah.
some point, you might want your own Shopify shop. We've talked about that here before. And then there's course platforms. There's all sorts of different things. And I think at some point, you just make the best choice for the information that you have in the moment, right? Like it, and then at some point, if it grows and you may end up switching. I mean, the number of times I've switched platforms in the last 15 years on things is comical. But it's like, this isn't right for me anymore. There's a better solution, and you just suck it up and you do it.
I feel like the thing with digital products, though, Etsy, Shopify, Gumroad is an example I can think of, but you want something that's going to automatically deliver the product. That's the most important part. So if you're like selling on, I don't know, Facebook group and you want to sell digital files, that's going to be cumbersome, right? Because like they're going to have to send you their email address. You're going to have to manually send the file. The whole point of this is automation,
Mhm.
automation, automation. So be sure that you're using the automation features. And then I did want to mention that some platforms do not allow the selling of digital files. So be sure to check those terms of service before you sign up for any platform.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And to your point too, Angie, like not doing things on these platforms that are set up to handle digital files, like it's safer for the buyer, the seller, like there's protocols in place. You can put terms and conditions up, things that you need to do the whole 9 yards, like trying to kind of circumvent the system with like an easy way to get, not the way to go, trust me. You don't want to go that route. I use Samcar as my payment processor, but they actually have a spin-off where you can do courses, and they're set up just for digital products specifically. And so that's my payment processor, but you can actually host products within them as well. And so that's worked really well for me, just as one other platform that I'll mention for people who are interested.
Yeah, and we've talked about ConvertKit because they have the free up to 10,000 now, and I'm not sure if that includes they have a digital selling platform now, and I'm not sure if that free plan includes that, but you might check that out as well, see if the free plan includes that, so you could get kind of all-in-one type of deal with just, like, signing up for one account.
All right. We are at our first commercial break. I like that I just announce it these days. It's time for a commercial break. So, our commercial break today is, I guess, sponsored by Abbi. She has a really great resource for brand new small business owners. So, it's called her Launch and Grow Your Creative Business Workbook, and she has it for only $7. This is basically a set of questions that will help you like figure out what to sell and where to sell it. So if you're just like really starting that journey and you're just like, because we get that question a lot, like, what should I sell? And we're like, we don't know. We're not you. I feel like this is like a really good place to start. Abbi, do you want to tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I wrote this a while back and I was reading through it yesterday. It was like, you know how you write something and you come back to it later, like, I forgot that I wrote this part in there. So I was actually refreshing myself on it. That sounds like completely egotistical. All right, let me backtrack here. So the Launch and Grow Your Creative Workbook, it's just like you said, it really helps you dial in on what to sell and who to sell to. So sometimes it's like, I want to sell something. I'm a creative person, but like, what do I even know? Like, you have to sell something that you know a lot about, or that you know more about than somebody else, like the average person would know. So that's the first thing. Like, what brings you joy, first and foremost, to talk about? Like, what could you talk about all the time? And what do you enjoy naturally? And what are things that you know a lot about already? So in this workbook, we go through a set of questions to help you kind of unveil that for yourself. And then once you get past that, we also introduce the concept of who you will sell to. So it's not just what you're selling, but who are we selling to, your ideal customer avatar, and really refining that. And then we even go one layer deeper as to like, platforms you can sell on. So I have a whole list of platforms you could sell on there. And I also list out like the pros and cons of each platform from my experience and my research and other people I've known who've used these different platforms. So it's kind of just exactly what it is, like a kickstart guide of like, all right, who am I selling to? What am I selling? Where could I sell? And it gets you up and going, and it gets all of that, those creative juices flowing on what you can do with your ideas.
And that's a ton of the questions we get here, or all those are covered in that workbook.
Yeah.
So I have put, if you are on YouTube, I put the QR code up in the corner. You can scan the QR code, or you can head to link.craftingcamps.com/biz. And that's BIZ, link.craftingcamps.com/biz. So grab it for $7 right now. And if you're just starting out on your business, I feel like it could be a great resource. But even if like you started and maybe you started wrong and didn't develop that customer avatar, and maybe you feel like you're selling the wrong product, this could be your feat for you as well.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like sometimes when you want to start your business, you're like completely overwhelmed and you don't know where to start. This is where you start, guys. This is like a great place to like just kind of focus on a few things instead of getting like overwhelmed with, okay, I have to create all of this stuff and this brand and 1,000 things. It's like, okay, we're going to start here small. And I think that's really, really helpful for a lot of people.
And it's never too late to course correct. If you started wrong, it's never too late to course correct. Trust me, I course corrected. It's never too late. All right, next question. What challenges have you faced in creating and selling digital products, and how have you overcome them?
Well, first and foremost, my challenge has been that I have so many ideas. I'm one of those people, and I realize that may not resonate with everybody, but for me, I have so many ideas that I will start one idea and I'll sort of get a little bit into it, and then I'll come up with another idea and I won't finish the first idea. And I'll kind of just stack ideas forever. And then I'll look back and I'll be like, oh, I'm so exhausted from all these amazing ideas, but I have nothing that's out there, like nothing to show for it. Like you guys can probably relate to that. And so that's been a real struggle for me, is being like, dial in on what's really going to matter. What do your customers want? What are people looking for? So finding that balance of not kind of going like squirreling and like, ooh, like shiny object here and there and all that stuff, really staying focused. And the way you stay focused, again, kind of like what that workbook defines, but really understanding what people are looking for. What do you know about, and what are people looking for? So I've actually had to bring myself back to that many times, because it's so easy to go off on that path of just getting distracted and not staying focused or following through with these products. And excuse me, that's been my number one issue, just in general, creative ideas. I guess that could probably go to any type of product, but I think with digital, it really resonates, because with digital, you can kind of produce once and you don't have to keep reproducing, right? So it's like you produce once in most cases and it's there to sell. So you can just compound ideas over and over and over and over and over again, and it can grow. And so that's been a real struggle for me at times.
I'll add one struggle. Well, I have two kind of big struggles, but I'll talk about one here. One of my struggles for digital products has been when I have decided to change something about my digital products.
Mhm.
So I have, I think at this point, 1,700 SVG files in my shop. And I decided to change the terms of service and give everybody a commercial license. But my terms of service that was inside the zip for each and every file said that it had a personal license, which meant I had to update 1,700 files. And this is just the way it goes, right? For a long time, commercial licenses were extra. And now for most regular SVG files, commercial licenses included. So it just became one of those things where I'm like, I can't compete with all of these other companies offering a commercial license, so I'm going to include it. But it did take, it was something that I ended up hiring somebody to do, because it was like, I cannot sit here and remake 1,700 zip files. And we ended up sort of changing the way we do our terms of service because of it. But it's just something to think of if you are going to sell something, that when you may want to add that terms of service, you do want to add that terms of service into your zip or along with your download. You want to make sure that what you're saying in there is what you want to actually do. And just know that you may run into problems later.
Along those lines, I wanted to mention that a challenge for some people might be finding like commercial use fonts. So if you're going to, excuse me, if you're going to use fonts and make a digital product like an SVG file, you do need to have the commercial rights to that font. Mm-hmm. And finding those fonts you like, commercial license that's affordable, could be a challenge. Mm-hmm. So I often recommend just finding, we always recommend finding your brand, finding those fonts that you're going to use over and over and over again, and then getting a commercial license to use those. And that way you are covered when it comes to like the legal issues with using those for SVG files.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's super important. Yeah, that whole protection of licensing and everything is super key with digital products. And do your research, but don't like freak out. Like ask people for advice and help who've been there before, because they're going to have more knowledge. And then at the same time, don't let the fear of making a mistake hold you back, because I'm one of those people who are like, do I know everything? I probably don't know everything. So I'm going to have to just do it. And then when I figure out, oops, I need to change this, like Corey figured out I need to change my terms of service, then you do it. On that note, Corey, I was thinking is I actually had a similar situation with some of my files with my flower templates. And what I ended up doing is, and this would only work, I guess, if you have like a site that you could do this on, but I ended up putting my terms of service on an actual web page. Maybe you did that. And then you link to it. And then that way you can just update the web page and the link just kind of goes to that. And so that can be if you're forward thinking at all, try to have it go to a page that you can just update the one page. And if you need to, you don't have to update the actual files. You can just update the page.
That's exactly what I did. And that actually was something that I got the idea from Jamila Payne, and she was a guest on our podcast a couple episodes ago. And she was like, why do you have individual terms of service? You should just link to a website. And I was like, well, that was a really smart idea. And it just works really well. And I can update it when necessary. And honestly, since I have done it, I've not actually updated it. I'm happy with my terms of service right now, but it is much more updatable than it was before.
Yes.
I was going to insert a challenge here of like in being inspired by someone versus copying their design. So I feel like that's a challenge overall, just in our industry, in the crafting industry, but especially with files. I mean, you see a file and it sticks in your head, and then you make it and it's like, where have I seen that before? Because like I have seen that before. I think someone done that, because it's like your mind saves things way back in the back and they come out once you open Illustrator. So I feel like it's walking a fine line by being inspired by something versus copying, and definitely never intentionally copying or, copying someone else's work is always a horrible idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Never intentionally do it. And mistakes may happen, like you said, Angie. Like I've done that before where I have something stick in my mind. I'm like, oh crap, like that was not my original idea. Like, and there's also this weird fine line of like, where there's so much common use things where it's like, you'll get something that's so much like, okay, this is a flower. Like this is like a round petal flower. And someone's like, that's mine. I'm like, no, pretty sure God created that. Like, and so it's weird. It's a very weird dynamic, and you have to navigate that. Just do your research, and never intentionally copy anything. And I think my rule of thumb is like 5 notable differences between yours and something maybe that you're inspired by or anything else. I'll often, sometimes if I create a design file or I have like a finished sample project, I'll photograph it and I'll put it into like the Google image search, and I'll make sure that there's like nothing that's like, oh, that looks like that was like literally copied from that. Because maybe I had a moment where I was like, oh, I saw that somewhere, and then I made it later on. I was like, well, that needs to have some more changes because it looks way too much like somebody else's stuff. And sometimes you can even do that and you haven't seen it. Sometimes it legit is just like, oops, well, it happened. Yeah. Like everyone can have similar ideas. We can draw inspiration from similar places. So.
I mean, it makes sense. Like all 3 of us have, I think, ebooks on how to use a Cricut.
Yeah.
And like how you use a Cricut doesn't change that much between who's teaching it. We all have our own styles, but like, you're going to have the same process. So I think at some point there's also, there's going to be some overlap. There's going to be the things that are trending right now. There's going to be like, whatever it is, I like the 5 notable differences idea. Maybe it's different scale, different colors, different fonts, different, whatever it is, like mix it up and don't copy directly. But I do feel like just with the way that our industry is, there is going to be overlap, and you shouldn't worry about it very much because I feel like you could get caught up in it, but then you'll just be stuck in that forever.
Yeah.
Except I have the list in my mind of things like the things I do not touch, like copyrights, like Disney's copyrights.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
So those big copyrights, I do not touch them. I don't go anywhere near Disney. Nothing's even going to look like mouse ears. Like it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, no, definitely. You're 100% right. Stay away from Disney branded things like that. And trademark phrases are a huge thing. I actually had to learn that the hard way because I sold on Etsy one time, and I won't like say the brand just to be respectful, but like I legit didn't know that this brand had trademarked a certain word that was so commonly used. I mean, it was used like the word "the," and I was like, I had no idea this brand owned this word, and I was using it as a search term to be found. And so they messaged me and I was like, oh, I had no idea. So if you just go to like the trademark, the USP or whatever it's called, the trademark website, you can type in phrases. That's super important if you're like doing typography, like SVG designs, and perhaps you're using like a phrase or something, or maybe you're using a phrase from a song or something like that kind of stuff. You need to go and make sure that there's not like a word trademark on that, because someone will get you.
I know that a big one that people get caught by is the Lucky Brand jeans and all that. The word lucky is trademarked. So you can't just make a St. Patrick's Day design that just says lucky, especially if it kind of has a retro font. They're going to get you for it. And it's just like, you're like, it's not at all about pants, but Apparently it is about pants. So it's just one of those things. And you know what? I've been hit with a trademark thing. I know you've been hit, Abby. I don't know if you have, Angie, where you just get a letter and then you go, oh, I guess I'm going to learn. And you take it down right away. You don't fight it. You just are like, okay, you know what? We're moving on. But again, stay away from those big, you know, J.K. Rowling is not going to play.
No. No.
All right. So you have a lot of free content because you have your blog and all of your other channels. How do you balance offering that free content while promoting your paid digital products?
So I'll be completely honest with you. This is still a challenge for me to this day. For one main reason, I do love giving away free things. And I'm also a people pleaser by nature. And so, of course, with your community, when you ask people like, do you want to buy this from me or do you want it for free? What are they going to say? Like, I want it for free. Of course. So for me, the first thing I had to learn, and I'm still like, I still have to tell myself this, but it's a mindset shift as a creator too, because you know, for anyone out there who wants to give away however much you want to give away for free, that's perfectly fine. Do that. Do what's good for you. But we also, I think, get like in our own heads, as well as we can hear like the noise of the internet, where it's people like, well, someone else is giving this away for free, so everybody should be giving this away for free or something like that. And so having this mindset shift that my stuff is valuable and that if I want to charge for this and then I offer this piece for free, that's okay. So I've had to adjust to that first and foremost internally. And then I like to make sure that I'm creating balance between it. So I usually do about 50%, I call it nurture lead content, which is either something that's free, that's bringing in a new person to my community, a lead, or is nurturing existing people who are there. And then I do about 50% paid content. So that paid content would be an ebook or a file that is paid download or a course product or something like that. And then my nurture lead content usually just kind of naturally feeds into that paid content. As far as there being a formula aside from those recommendations, I don't really have one. I try to just have a balance between them. I like to create collections of things where maybe there's a certain theme and one of those pieces is a freebie, and then the rest is like a paid bundle or something like that. So that can kind of work really well if you need like a baseline to go off of.
Yeah, I feel like this is a struggle. This is going to be a struggle for all three of us here.
Yeah.
And it is, a lot of it is the comparison, right? So you're looking at someone else, you know, maybe I look at Abby and all I see is the freebie she's giving away.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a perception because she's a businesswoman. She has things she's selling. So it's almost a perception. Like I always see Abby giving away free stuff. I should give away all the free stuff. And so you could get caught into sort of a comparison game with these digital products. But we're all business owners and you need to make money somewhere. And I love that you said you have to value your work and whatever you've created is valuable, whether it's that SVG file, that ebook that shares your knowledge, people are going to want it. And I think a lot of people downplay the value of a digital product. Like, who is going to want this ebook on a Cricut machine? Why would they pay for it? But people are looking for that knowledge. They're looking for it all in one place. And there are tons of people that are looking for it in a printable format or some format that's all together in one piece. So it does offer value, even though another person might be giving it away for free. You're giving your knowledge, your value, and you've put that all into that ebook.
And if you are giving away something for free, give it away in a way that makes it not technically free, right? We talk a lot about an email list every episode, guys. If you haven't started your email list, I don't know why you're still listening to this podcast. But, get an exchange for an email address, offer a free file, because the file then it's free, yes, but it also brings value to you as a creator, because now you have that person on your list. And like Abby was saying, you can nurture them, you can then sell other products, those sorts of things. And I think there is some, just with the way that kind of our industry has developed, like organically over the years, I think people do kind of, they see some free stuff and they download it and then they get on the list. And then when the paid stuff comes up, they're more likely to buy because they have received value from you in the first place. They know kind of what to expect. And I think that's really good too.
Yeah. Yes. And I will also add to that, like that when you give away something for free, don't make it like fluff free. So like, I think that's something that some people in the industry do where it's like the free stuff is really just bad and it's not as good as the paid stuff. Like your free stuff should be as good and valuable as your paid stuff. And I know that can feel weird as a creator and initially in the beginning, like, oh, I shouldn't be giving away this much because, you know, I should get paid for all of it or whatever. But really adding as much value as you can for the free, I guarantee is going to convert way better for people than just giving them fluff.
Yeah, if they
It
get
almost
fluff
starts
and
like it almost starts building a relationship with that person, right? Like you are building a relationship. You've offered them a freebie, they've got on your list, you chit chat with them in your email marketing. We've talked about this. You're very personal with your emails, you talk with them, and it's almost building that relationship over time so that when you do have that paid product, they're like, she has given me so much. I just want to support her, or this ebook's going to be amazing because of these past ebooks she's given me for free that were awesome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, you don't necessarily want to buy a product from somebody who gave you something kind of crappy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're then would expect the product itself to also be crappy.
Absolutely. And your reputation as well. Like I've had people message me who are like, I'm on a fixed income. I can't buy this product, even though I would love to, but I love what you do. I'm going to stay on your email list and I'm going to share about your community to a friend who I know will like this. And so you just got another lead, another warm lead because of your reputation. Even if that person couldn't buy from you, they're passing along that word of mouth. Like word of mouth and in the digital industry, it still exists. Like it's kind of a back of the mind thing, but trust me, it's still there. So even if this person for some reason can't or won't buy from you right away, it doesn't mean that if your freebie sort of stinks, it isn't going to be memorable.
Yeah, and I'm fine. If you just want to hang out on my email list for the freebies, that is fine. And there are free ways to support creators like we talked about. A rate and review on this podcast or a thumbs up on the YouTube video supports us and it's free. So there are free ways to support people, creators, handmade businesses, you know, like on their Instagram posts, comment on them, just do something to support them small, even if you can't afford to purchase at that time. All right, next question. This is a tough one, I feel like. What future trends do you see in the world of digital products for crafters, and how are you preparing to adapt to them?
Well, you know, as far as exact trends, I don't think I have really something. I always say, forge the path, don't follow the trail. So for me, I'm always looking for not a trend so much as an idea that could become a trend, like you be the trendsetter. As far as digital products in general, though, if I'm answering that question more in like a broad way, I would say that, I mean, it's going to continue to explode. Like the digital frontier in general, it's infinite and it's going to continue to expand on crazy levels over the next decade. So I would say that the trends that we're going to see is just an explosive amount of digital products and information out there. Now, I think if I'm going to say one trend that's going to be in there, is it's going to be the trend of a lot of noise from other creators. And you're going to have to figure out how to navigate that. So if I was going to answer this question with some sort of value aside from like a specific trend, I would say there's going to be a lot of noise and competition, and you're going to have to figure out how to stand out from that. And that's where like forging the path and not just following the trail is going to come in, looking for new ideas and being super genuine and authentic with your people. And like we were just talking about, like, don't give away fluff, that kind of stuff. Like I think the trend is going to be just more information coming at people, and you've got to like stand out with something unique, new, genuine, and authentic. So that's not super specific, but that is probably my best answer to that question.
I think AI is going to explode. I mean, it is exploding.
Yeah.
Which means, like you were saying, I would say that 95% of the things AI creates right now are terrible.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Just really, really bad. And so we had noise before. We have like a crowd now. Like it's just exponentially.
Like a Taylor Swift concert screaming at us.
Of really bad AI, right? So you need to figure out how to, one, create a really good product, like really good files. Learn how to create files that are really cuttable. If you're making SVG files that are, you know, where all your spelling and grammar is correct. I mean, if you go on, I mean, we love Creative Fabrica, but you can always tell when something has been maybe AI created on there because, the other day it was like, I saw when it was a cake and it was like, birthday name goes here. Like whoever Whoever made it didn't understand the concept of what we were looking for in this SVG file. So making really high quality files, whatever they are, high quality ebooks, whatever it is. And then also, like you were saying, be genuine and authentic, because you are not a robot, right? We don't necessarily want machines creating art for us. And so we can talk more about like buying from actual humans and, just spreading the word that like, yeah, AI can create some cool stuff, but at what cost?
I feel like be a consumer of whatever digital product you're thinking of creating. So if you're going to make SVG files, own a cutting machine and actually use SVG files from other people so you can see what we're talking about. There are some that, and frankly, they are not cuttable. And it's a lot of these websites out there that claim to be able to make SVG files from like anything you put in, and they are horrible when you import them. And just doing things to your files that makes them come in the right layers with everything grouped together. Things like that will make your files be the ones that people want to purchase, because they don't have to do anything to them. They don't have to hack them when they upload them to Cricut Design Space. So be sure that you're a user of whatever digital format you decide to sell.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
it's hard. I think it's hard to compete with, where somebody's like 10,000 SVG files for $2, right? Like it's really discouraging. But then you remember those were made in, probably by somebody not being paid enough in another country who doesn't speak English, which, is not a bad thing. But if you are making English things, you should probably speak English. And they are made really quickly. They don't cut well. They're probably traced from other files, all of these different things. And if we educate our audiences about whatever it is, I mean, we're talking about SVG files here just because that's what we tend to make. But whatever type of digital file that you're making, we can educate our audiences as well as we go forward. Like, these are cuttable because I understand how a cutting machine works. I understand how vector files work. I've cut 1,000 different designs on my cutting machine. I know what fonts work, all of these different things. We can sort of educate also as we go. It's another thing you can create content around as well.
Yeah. On the note of education, I think too, like when you're delivering that digital product, if it's like an SVG or an ebook or something, add something else in there that's relevant, but they didn't ask for it. It's kind of like, when you get those like handmade items that you might buy off of Etsy or something, and like the shop seller puts something like an extra bonus in there, and you're like, oh, I love this, and then like it becomes more memorable. Like do the same thing with your digital products as well. Like go the extra mile. It's never crowded there,
Yeah. The extra mile is not selling 10,000 SVG files for $2, just so we know.
And
it
honestly,
sounds like it is, but it's not.
Yeah. Honestly, some of those ones that you're talking about, like I've seen what you're talking about, and you can get these downloads and they don't actually have what they say is in it either. Like it's just totally just a facade and there's not actually there. So on that note, always deliver what you're going to, like what you say you're going to deliver, always deliver it, and then add a little something extra and you'll go far.
And just also, I was going to say, just from a user perspective, again, I know we're talking about SVG files, but this probably applies to other things as well. Sometimes I'll order like a bundle of SVG files and then they're named 1, 2, 3, 4. Things like that drive me crazy. And I feel like, I name all of my files by what the actual thing is so that people can find them. I have HLMS, Hey, Let's Make Stuff, at the beginning of all of my file names. So like even the way you name your files can be really important to your customers, because then they can organize them better. They can find what they're looking for. Like, I don't know what file 6 is. I have to open up, and they're all in individual folders. So I have to open up each individual folder, then open up each individual file to see what I'm getting. And that is just a pain in the butt. So that's another thing. Just think about customer experience when you're delivering your files.
Yeah. And on that note too, like, I can't tell you guys probably get this exact same thing. How many times people get lost with like, I don't know how to download this. I don't know how to upload this. I don't know what this means, or how do I install this extension? Like little tutorials of like AI can't do that for you. Like a person needs to teach someone else how to do that. So include that being like an example of the extra thing that goes in there. Like, here's how to do this and stuff like that, like going above and beyond. It makes a world of difference.
Yeah, FAQ page will save you all kinds of customer service issues.
Yes.
So I was going to say this, we're talking about SVG files, but I was going to mention like ebooks have all these same issues. I feel like I intentionally download like these 10-in-1 Cricut books, and they're so horrible. They're obviously generated by something that has never used a Cricut machine in its life. And does not know how to use Design Space. So it's the same thing, just going above and beyond with anything will put you far above the competition of these things that are AI generated.
Yeah. All right, so we have one more question, but before we ask it, I want to make sure you guys, if you want to ask any questions, go ahead and do that in the YouTube live chat. We have a couple that have come through, but if you have any more questions, now is the time to ask because we're going to answer them here in just a minute. So our last question for Abbi today is, what advice would you give to someone who is just starting out with creating and selling digital products in the crafting industry?
I would tell you, first and foremost, do your research. Do your research and start with something that brings you a lot of joy, because that's going to show through so much to your customers in the beginning, and that's going to give you a real connection. I would also say just get started. I know that sounds so simple, but I am type A perfectionist, and I have so many things that hold me back because I feel like everything has to be just this way before I can jump into anything, digital product, anything. Like, just get started and then be willing to listen to feedback and then make adjustments. That's another thing an AI can't do. It can't listen to a human's feedback and then make adjustments for the better. So take whatever you have in your knowledge, put it out there, just get it out into the world, and then be super receptive to feedback and perfect it. And I promise you, you will grow.
Yeah, I feel like you said, sorry, sometime in the beginning of this episode, you said something about how your first ebook was horrible, and everyone's is. Like,
Yeah.
let's just face it, guys. Like,
Mhm.
do not let it hold you back that
Mhm.
I don't know how to make an ebook. Well, just make one, because eventually you will learn how to make an ebook.
Mhm.
Like, I am struggling right now with making my stuff where it could be read like on a Kindle or something like that, so I could do more sales that way.
Mhm.
And we all have these struggles. Like, we all have this struggle of making it perfect, but literally you could just put it out there and it's okay. You can fix it later, like Abbi said, or like some of my stuff you could probably go digging around, but I just don't promote it anymore. But
Yeah.
you can dig around for my first ebooks if you would like, though.
Yeah.
And I think we also have to realize that technology and things grow as time goes on, right? So like my first ebook might have been made in Word, like Microsoft Word, because Canva wasn't a thing. And now we have Canva and we think, oh, I can create a really beautiful design in Canva. Awesome. But are those Canva designs going to look super dated and old and not very good when we are 10 years from now and we're reading through our eyeballs? Probably, whatever it is, like, some sort of implant. Yeah, probably. So, I mean, like, I think we can think like, oh, that looked so terrible, but it's also a product of its time. And the things we're making now are also products of their time. And we shouldn't like let that stop us either. That, I think that sometimes I think, oh, is this going to like, how am I going to make this work forever? It's not going to work forever. And it's in a digital landscape. Things change so rapidly that it's going to work for a while. And then you're going to have to figure out what's next.
Mhm.
Another piece of advice would be not to let the competition scare you and hold you back from getting started. That would be my other thing. Digital products, there's a lot of people. There are a lot of people. There are three of us right here. There are a lot of people in the digital product industry, in crafts, selling whatever digital product you're thinking about right now. There's tons of people doing it, but don't let that hold you back. Figure out ways to stand out in the market, figure out ways to market yourself, your product, and like there's a place for everyone. That's why we're telling you how to make digital products right now, because we believe there's a place for everyone in the market. Yes, you are going to be our direct competitor, but we believe there's a place for each and every person. And so put your individual style on those SVG files, pour all that knowledge you have into an ebook. There's a place for you.
Yeah. And I think other people too, they don't just buy from one person. Like, we get caught in our mindset of like, well, if this customer buys from me, they're never going to buy from Angie or Corey. No, I go shopping at Walmart and Target. I go shopping at 7-Eleven and Walmart. Like, I go to both. It's not an all or nothing thing. And I think sometimes we get caught in that when we're in that competition mindset. It's like, yeah, I can create something that's my own unique thing and is similar to my competition, but that I've had people who've bought my ebook that I know have bought your ebooks too, and they want just our own unique teaching style and they just like it. So it's like, don't let that stop you, like you're saying.
All right, so we're going to check and see if we have any questions in the comments right now on YouTube. But Abbi, you have a free Magic of SVGs workshop, and I'm going to put the link and QR code up, but I want you to tell us a little bit about this free workshop and why everyone should take this.
Magic of SVGs. As I told you at the beginning of my story, I got started using Inkscape, which is still around today. It's a vector graphic program that lets you create SVG files, scalable vector graphics. And this is what I use to make my templates and my digital products that I sell to other people as this passive income, something I can create once and then I can sell over and over again. And so I've actually taken that knowledge over the last 11 years now from using that program. And I put it into a workshop where I will actually show you a step-by-step process so you can see how it all works together in the workshop. And you can learn to make your very own SVG file. So if you're someone who's like, I could see myself making SVGs, or I want to do that, or even if you just want to do it for personal use, just for fun, like go and join the workshop. You'll love it.
All right, so that is link.craftingcamps.com/magic, and that's MAGIC. So link.craftingcamps.com/magic. And again, it's a free workshop. If you've ever thought about making SVGs before, just head there, sign up for the workshop, and let Abby show you everything she knows about making SVG files. All right, so I'm going to pull some questions. This first one was watermarked, yes or no. So feelings on watermarks.
I was gonna say I watermark. I put all my SVG files behind what I call a security template, which is basically it has like a little cross hatching on there. Can people steal my files and trace them? Probably. It makes it a little harder, and they get uglier because I have that. But I also put my blog name and the type of file on that particular image so that people, like if somebody sees the traced version, they might be able to find the original version. But yeah, so I do watermark my SVG files because I feel like, why not? Make it a little harder.
I used to do it more. I don't do it as much now because I've had so many people steal from me. After a while, I was just like, they're going to steal no matter what. So like I still put like for example, if I'm sharing a graphic of something on like social media, it might say like AbbiKirstenCollections.com at the bottom like that, just to like kind of reference it, because people will just grab those images off the internet or whatever. So you're sort of getting credit that way. But like as far as I used to do it, where it actually would go over like the template and that kind of stuff. And now I'm just like, it's not even worth it. They're just going to take it no matter what. So on that note, I would say have a cease and desist template so that when somebody, if you like, let you know that someone's stealing from you, because you'll have a customer be like, by the way, someone's using your file. I've had that like 100 times. Like, oh, okay, thank you. Find contact information, cease and desist, send letter. Like that's just going to be the most effective. That's my experience anyways.
Yeah, I feel the websites that they're using to steal these SVG files are getting more and more advanced. I'll just say that. I still watermark. However, they're getting more and more advanced to remove those. So, I mean, watermark or not, it may not make a difference.
Yeah.
I do feel like right now the technology isn't there to convert super colorful files very well. So if you are creating SVG files, use a range of colors behind a security template. We know with the cross hatching or some watermarks or whatever it is, I feel like that just makes it harder, even harder to trace. A lot of them are just traced all black. And, if you have all black SVGs, they're very easy to trace. But if you're using something like light pink and dark blue and yellow, and, all of my SVGs are very colorful, one, because I like color, and two, because they're harder to trace.
And use your brand colors. So your shop looks all branded.
Yeah.
So we're just going to come back to that. All right. Next question. What is more popular, a digital download that can be printed out or one that you open and fill in? And the example is a journal of, say, 100 pages.
I would say both. I would say go with both. This is you pick something that you want to be known for initially, like have that initial, like in my my Kickstart workbook, there's a most valuable product. So pick like your most valuable product, something that you're probably going to be known for. It's going to be really popular, and then expand. Like it doesn't have to be an if or, it can be an and. Like do both and see what happens. Like that's how I did it anyways.
I absolutely would agree. I feel like that could be two separate products. You could be like, hey, for those of you who want a fill-in journal, here you go. And if you want to print it out, here you go. And it just gives people more options and more potential buyers.
This is a good question. Ideal size when selling digital designs. Does anyone know these off the top of their head?
So I'll just say what I do. I don't know if there's like an ideal. So I make a document that's 1,000 pixels by 1,000 pixels, and that's for each SVG that I make. And then I export it as an SVG, a DXF, because people who have the free version of Silhouette Studio can open a DXF. I do a PDF for a reason I couldn't tell you, but I've been doing it long enough that it just lives in there. And then I do a JPEG, and I do a high resolution PNG, which has no background. And that high resolution PNG is 300 DPI. So I always make sure to have it. I mean, and 1,000 pixels at 300 DPI is like 13 something inches. So generally nobody's going to be making something much bigger than that, I don't think. But that does give some people like a large a PNG file if they want to use it for something like sublimation or DTF printing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're way more advanced than me. I just do what format they're going to need it in and make sure it's loading correctly how it needs to load in the software they would be using. So like if it's like an SVG and my audience is heavily Cricut design space, I know that I need to save it so that a lot of my projects have to load at a certain scale because otherwise the project can't be built in a certain way. So for me, I'm all about the scale of how it comes into the software, and I have to make sure that's set a certain way, and then I check the file, and that's how I save that. And then if I do a PDF, I do it for those people. If it's a project that they can make with a pair of scissors or something else that doesn't involve a cutting machine, then I will set that to a specific scale, and I'll just save like a high quality PDF and do that. I used to do PNG images all the time because for whatever reason, people were asking for them, and then they kind of stopped asking for them. And I was like, there wasn't really anyone using them in my case. So I was like, I guess I don't make them anymore. So now I just do PDF and SVGs.
All right. I'm making physical products, but most of are my original designs. What are your thoughts about watermarks for web page display for like the mock-ups or the finished product? And I don't watermark any of my mock-ups. I don't know if any of you do.
I used to like watermark all of my photos. I would export them. You can, in Adobe Lightroom, you can export things with a watermark, which is really nice. You upload the watermark and it just will automatically put it on everything when you export it, which is nice. So if you want to do it that way, highly recommend Lightroom for photos. But when I'm doing mockups and things like that, I just don't anymore. I just feel like there's people who are going to steal, and I hate those people, but there's nothing I can like really do about it. I mean, I can fight it where I can see it, but people are going to be bad no matter what. And I think watermarks kind of make my mockups look a little ugly, so I don't tend to do it.
Yeah, I used to do a lot where things were over it, and now I just put my website at the bottom because, like you said, they're gonna, if they really want to steal it, they're gonna really steal it. And even if someone doesn't steal, I think in the capacity that we're thinking about, your image is still gonna get like copy and pasted to something else, and then it's not gonna actually go back to the root like URL or whatever. And so it's gonna happen even if it's not intentional stealing per se. It's more like resharing in a weird way, like people who'll go to Pinterest and they'll download the image and they'll upload it to their own Pinterest or something like that, and so it doesn't go to your website. Like, it's gonna happen. Pick whatever makes you feel comfortable is what I would say.
Absolutely.
Okay, did you see any other questions that I did not catch, Corey?
I think that was it.
Okay, perfect.
All right. So thank you, Abby. We've really loved having you come on. We always love chatting with you. So make sure to check out Abby at abbikirstencollections.com. And then make sure to sign up for that free workshop. Hello, free workshop. We love free.
Yes. And then in 2 weeks, our next episode, we're going to deep dive into using HTV for your small business. So kind of starting where you are, if you just have a Cricut machine, how can you start with HTV and make a business? And we'll have Jen Crookston on, and she's from Creative Housewives, and you are going to love her. So that will be on YouTube live August 1st, and your favorite on your favorite podcast network on August 5th. So you can sign up for our newsletter in the podcast notes or YouTube description, and we will send you reminders about all these dates and all these things so you don't miss anything.
And before we leave, this is just a reminder to share this episode with any of your friends. If you have friends who are thinking about starting a digital products business, send this episode to them. And of course, rate and review our podcast. We really appreciate it. I saw some new reviews come in this last week. They make me so happy. So if you want to make me and Angie particularly happy, go rate and review our podcast, especially on Apple Podcasts, because I like get them in a little like rundown, and I'm like, oh, we've got new reviews, and it just makes me way too happy.
And we
So
do read every single one.
every
So,
single
yes.
one, and we share them in our little group with all of our friends, and we're like, oh my god, the people love the podcast, and it makes us so happy. So it's really vital to our success, and we appreciate it.